Thanks everyone for spending the night here with us tonight. And thanks Robert and the PMI and all the organizers for the invitation and for making this evening happen. I'm Andrea. If you worry about pronouncing my name, don't worry. It can be pronounced in many ways, Andrea or Andrea, all kinds. It will be all correct. I hope this topic will be relevant to you. I prepared a discussion which is an Agile topic. What's the role of project management professionals, including not only project managers, program managers, portfolio managers in an Agile organization? How can we move agility forward together? I'm very much looking forward to the networking session tonight and exchanging more with you, all of you, actually, about this topic. Let's test the slides. So a few words about me. I have been talking a few times at PMI events before, in Singapore, in Hungary, but this is my first time in London. I'm based here since the last 2 years. I work as a lean Agile enterprise coach, and I specialize on Agile portfolio offices and lean Agile transformations. My background is in software engineering. I started in the telecom industry, moving on to IT and technology companies in general. I worked 8 years in various roles, from program management, change management, to coaching lean Agile transformations. And now let's talk about you. I would like to play just a short games. Who in the audience considers themselves project professionals? Quite a good ratio. Okay, welcome. From this group, how many of you are project managers? Okay, so very much what I expected. And how many of you work in Agile environments of some sort? Yeah. For the rest of the group, are there any engineers here? Technical guys, girls? Okay, good. Thank you. So I hope this will be relevant. I would like to ask you to think about questions, and we will talk about them in the end. We will have more than half an hour to discuss them. I would like to start with the question: why is it Agile becoming more popular, and why is it that we, in general, in most industries, are moving towards more Agile way of working? Is it just a fad? Is it a fashion? Is it peer pressure? What is driving us? And I took the slides from Dean Leffingwell. If you know him, one of the practitioners and thought leaders in the industry. And he often says that software is eating the world. Software is everywhere. There are many companies who have never thought they will ever be working in the software field, in the software industry. Agricultural firms, fashion firms, they all need B2B, B2C platforms. They all need a strong IT to drive their business forward. So software is becoming more and more widespread. What we are facing, though, is that our methods of managing complexity and complex software development, large-scale software development in particular, haven't kept pace with the speed of technology. And what is our challenge is also how we can grow beyond single teams, single team-level practices like Scrum and Kanban. How can we scale that to the entire organization? And the vision of programming like this, there are some great technology shows where this is already being prototyped in a way, and we are moving software coding with our eye movements, if you have been to Sabit recently. But that's still in the labs. We are, unfortunately, in most cases, we are not programming like this, but still more like this. Do you agree? So our challenge is really to think about how can we evolve our methods and evolve enterprise methods for agility. And here I give a summary of why Agile is different from traditional methods. And one of the biggest benefits of Agile is incremental delivery of value. As we move beyond as we grow faster, we have shorter and shorter sprints and release time boxes. We try to deliver value to our customers, depending on the industry, every month or even every day, releasing new features, functionalities to them. Whereas in traditional methods, in more traditional governance and larger scale organization, this happens less frequently. There is more a big bang value release. And it's not necessarily waterfall. We can talk about that later. About Agile, another benefit of this method is also meeting customer needs and customer requirements. By working more closely with our customers, we can actually follow it better, what they really need, and evolve the product together. So this gap is widening as we improve our Agile methods. We can actually get value right for our customers and for our business. And also Agile is about risk management and risk reduction. And this is one of the most important fields in PMI and project management. What are the ways to explore risks as early as possible? And with agility, we are actually prioritizing sequencing high-risk features, functionality first. We actually face the risk first, and by that we reduce that early on the projects, rather than approaching a deadline with a high-risky deliverable. So I would like to poll you guys about these methods. How many of you use Scrum today? Yeah, extreme programming in the audience? Practices like pair programming and, okay, not in Shell today. Kanban, visual management, or maybe a combination of Scrum and Kanban. Okay. And anything beyond Agile? Anything not listed here? Okay, the Shell Agile methodology. I will be glad to explore that. And then how many of you can say that you definitely spend time on continuous improvement, at least every week, with your teams? Great. Okay. So, and I haven't listed the full list of Agile methods here, but it gives us an understanding of how widespread these methods are in application. So tonight, we won't be just theoretical. We will talk about some myths, some challenges that I have seen, and then maybe discuss, share. Have you seen this myth? I see it happen often. As teams evolve and organizations start adopting Agile, they gain confidence. And at some point, what we see is they start saying things like, we don't need managers. We manage our scope. We have a product owner, product managers. We work in a time box, so there is no need for time management. There is no need for cost management. We have a fixed budget that we work in. So why are these managers around us? What are they doing here? Are they controlling us? Which is a valid question. Why do we still have managers in Agile organizations? As Agile teams evolve, they become familiar to these geese. Basically, they know where they are heading to. They self-organize. They are empowered. They commit to a scope and they meet their deadlines. However, what we learn working with these teams is that teams don't start off as self-organizing teams. Teams usually start off fresh. They need time to gel, to implement Agile practices, to gain this confidence and be empowered. And also that these Agile teams don't exist in vacuum. They need an environment. They need a purpose. They need boundaries as well. And they are part of a culture. So who creates this environment for these self-organizing teams? Teams cannot create it for themselves. I listed some ideas on what are these preconditions that managers need to be concerned about. This is our main role in an Agile organization. Give the team a motivating purpose. Just making money is not enough. Just making the delivery or the release is not enough for the team. They really need to get feedback from customers. They really need to feel a sense of pride what value they deliver to the organization and to the customers. How does that product look like, and how is it used in real life? Other things, they need to be encouraged to work together. Very often in Agile teams, we still prefer to work as individuals and prefer to be rewarded or recognized as individuals. These behaviors need to be softened, and by focusing on intrinsic motivation, we can try build a team together. It also helps if these teams have a coach or a mentor. Teams doesn't stop at self-organizing. It's not a constant state. They can definitely fall back if we move people around. A new person arrives, the team is back to storming stage. We definitely need also a coach to help them evolve their process, to have them go beyond Agile. So that's all our role. And in particular, focusing on the audience here today, we all are going through this journey, and there is no such as Agile. There is no end state in agility and lean. We are continuously improving. But as we evolve from more traditional roles like project managers, program managers, adding the Agile word in front, I try to summarize which are the roles that are most impacted. I found in my practice that it's mainly Agile project managers, program managers, and Scrum Masters, and these Agile coaches who are the new roles that are impacted in this case. And the rest of the organization basically stays in place, but these roles also change ways of working and focus. So I also added a sign that this transition or this evolution can be painful. I have a personal story of this. When I was starting my career, arrived at a portfolio office that was starting an Agile transformation. I had these new role models. My colleagues around me, they were all project managers. I was a new project manager there. And they were saying, wow, Andrea, we are so concerned. We are not safe here. We might lose our jobs. We absolutely don't know what's our role here. There is this Scrum Master, there is this product owner, all these new people around us, but what will happen to us? Really didn't know how this role will look like. And I will share more about this story tonight. Another slide, one of my favorites visualizing this change is moving closer to the team, focusing less on hierarchy and distance, understanding more how we can have the team perform better. The servant leadership, which characterizes all project management roles as well in transformation. How many of you have read Rachel's book, Agile Coaching? It's a fantastic book. I would recommend it. I have read it recently. It's about summarizing what an Agile coach can do. How can they add value, and what are the daily tasks? On this mind map, she basically says it's about facilitation, support, encouragement, and this definitely describes what a servant leader does as well. And one interesting angle is Agile coach doesn't only work with the Agile team itself, it also works with the stakeholders. Coaching is needed not only for the core team, coaching is needed for the entire organization, all the business roles, all the portfolio program roles, customer-facing roles as well to make this happen. And about the focus of management, just a big change on what we focus on. Actually, what we found is everyone is needed still in the organization during the transformation. It's just we start moving from managing time and cost towards managing scope and value. So it's a different focus. It's less fear about changing plans and more focus on, okay, how can we maximize the value for the business? How can we maximize, improve the environment for the teams so that they who are creating this value, they can perform the best. That's how management changes in this case. So I hope I managed to break down a bit the first myth. The second myth is about complexity, which which is a very interesting topic today. I'm sure our head is full from complexity, all of us, by the end of the day today. In this today's world, I think knowledge workers face a complex environment. We manage multiple products, stakeholder relationships, several projects in many cases. Coaches coach several teams at the same time. Consultants like me coach several organizations at the same time. So complexity is our challenge. Can we manage it traditionally as managers, top down? Today, we will try. We'll definitely try. So our planning methods, traditional methods from the 1990s, are still there in many organizations I go into. We definitely still need to do planning. That's not a question. We still need to have release plans. We still need to meet customer needs and deadlines, and there is a lot of coordination involved in that. But it does get complex. So tonight I will talk about the story of an organization which is a telecom multinational, and its teams and program sizes were several hundred employees, and its products were 3,000 to 4,000 employees working on the same product. So you can imagine the program and portfolio management plans, if we would have kept them this way, how they would have looked. So what we are facing as we are transitioning towards more agile organizations is the evolution of governance. It's about planning, managing execution, but also the layer of governance. And if we look at traditional PMOs, what we find is that they manage still large batches of work. They have a centralized top-down way of working. Very often an annual budgeting process, which is a big constraint for an organization to adopt Agile. And also these PMOs are still often project-based, so they focus a lot of energy on kicking off and closing down projects, resourcing, scheduling those projects. So one of the questions here is, can we manage this as managers, as PMOs, as project organizations? Well, can we not become a bottleneck in the organization? My feeling and experience says we cannot. We can add 5 more, 10 more, 100 more project managers, but that's not the solution to manage today's complexity. We can attend project management training, we can improve to more agile practices, but again, still not the solution. So what we need to think about is managing complexity with complexity, is to think about reaching more to the intelligence, to the heart of the organization, who creates value. And these are the teams on the ground. So what we really are facing is an overload today of organizational desire, of business hungriness. We want to meet market opportunities, and as portfolio offices, we want to meet them with various portfolios and programs. We want to maximize the value of this portfolio, so we are really hungry. We see all these opportunities. And what we are facing is a delivery organization, either an IT organization or several PMOs, program and project offices, who deliver this value. And they are saying, please stop, we are overloaded. We cannot manage this complexity, it's too much. We don't have budget, we need to make decisions. So even on high level, on the governance level, we need to think about alignment. And my experience tells, and we have been through this with this large organization, is that the good way to start is with the PMO and the program offices, focusing on delivery capability, focusing on understanding our throughput, understanding our lead time, our capacity, and making it stable, reliable, so that we can go back to the front, the strategic planning part of the organization and say, this is what we can do. This is our capability. So let's maximize value. Let's select, let's prioritize those portfolios, programs that we are going to aim for. And if you notice, how many of you are familiar with traditional lean, the pull principle or just in time is behind of this image. what we would like to create is a pool connection between the two parts of the organization, ideal states. And what's the primary metric in the delivery part of the organization is working code, it's working software, stable delivery of customer value. If you are, in case you are not from a software organization, it's your product or your service customer value that you deliver. That's what we focus on. So let me tell you more about the story of this transformation. I will give you some details on how we evolved our structure, how we evolved our roles. It's an example. There are many ways to do it. So this Agile program was about 100 people. I selected one. So this program was part of a portfolio program office. And I selected one program to just focus on the program level. And we worked with various Agile projects at that time, but we already implemented like the foundation Scrum practices on each project. We had a program backlog, and then from that backlog we were selecting project backlogs. The scope was semi-committed, so how we were Agile was that we agreed that we work with 8 to 10 iterations, and then we had a semi-committed backlog, so we had some flexibility in the features for those 8 to 10 iterations. That's where we started. The teams were practicing Scrum, and they had 2-week iterations, basically. And what is noticeable here is that in this organization, the maintenance was a separate organization. So any release bugs that came after being released from the market came back, these were handled by a different team. And our portfolio office constantly faced this struggle that what are the priorities? Correcting existing bugs from the maintenance backlog or building new functionality in the project teams. Also, how can we incentivize the poor maintenance team who is constantly for years just working on bugs? These are also clever engineers, so we had to think about constantly rotating them, otherwise they would have left the company. So that was our structure. And as you notice also, the funding was per project basis. So what worked for us as a first step in this transformation was the good foundations on Scrum practices, Scrum process. So basically everyone understood and practiced this, and this helped teams gel together. This definitely had team morale that created a very productive environment. And also the focus on code quality. So we spent a lot of effort on improving our delivery process, test practices, code quality metrics, which is the foundation of Scrum and agility in an organization. But if you notice, the governance structure didn't evolve. So in this case, we still struggled with resourcing, still struggled with scope management, even though teams had semi-flexible scope. This scope had to be prepared for each project. Still struggled with dependencies and release dates. So very painful situation still. The second step for us, and what I didn't tell, it's 7 years of evolution, what I am briefing here. So gradually, what we noticed is that actually in the portfolio, our programs lasted several years, lasted 1 or 2 years. So our projects wouldn't have had to finish in a way. So our programs were relatively stable, and we realized that these were working on product solutions. So the market needed several newer versions of these products. So we thought about the structure. Could we stabilize these products? And as we looked into Lean, we found that these are value streams. These are stable streams of value flowing to the customer. How can we improve that value flow with our structure? Also, we realized that we had some internal value streams, which is fine, which were servicing the rest of the organization. So, after some risk discussion, whether we should really take this to the next level and reorganize, we decided to go for it. And note that this was very early in the industry. This was way ahead frameworks like SAFe at that time. So what we thought, we will stabilize value streams. And one reason to do that was the incredible effect that Agile had on our teams. We found that teams really were a value, an asset to the company. And this quote just back this up. It's teamwork that remains the ultimate competitive advantage, both because it's so powerful and so rare. So we managers, we had to stand up for our teams. We had to protect them. This was another driver to restructure. So what we did is stabilized our value streams. We call them programs to have a short name. They're not really programs anymore. And there are several practices that can help you in case you are not yet structured this way to find value streams in your organization. And I don't have time to share it now, but please find me later. We work with teams to do that, to do just that. And these methods are different for IT organizations compared to product development organizations. So our programs were called never-ending programs, NEP, NEP. And we also had another added advantage to this, that we had a stable funding for each value stream, so we had to not anymore worry about, funding cycles. We had a different process for budgeting, more stability, more stable resource numbers. And we also committed to keeping the names on the team stable. So it's not enough to think about numbers, it's actually people who matter. So we agreed to not mess around with teams too much. So what happened next? That was a picture that looked like this. So we had a common backlog suddenly for the program. And what we found is that we had these stable teams who were all working on 2-week iterations, even though not synchronized yet. And they had all kinds of internal deliveries. But they were stable at the moment, and we also got rid of the maintenance team. So to say, we agreed that maintenance is part of creating value to our customers. All bugs went into the same program backlog, and all bugs were prioritized as well as product improvements with new features together from the same source. And another practice that we did at this time was decoupling the release, the customer market-facing release process, and those decisions from internal releases. So we had a separate team, separate organization deciding on that, and that was an important step in governance. So in this setup, how did our Agile roles look like? And you might be working in a similar environment today. So we had, in the program, we had a program manager, an Agile coach as well, responsible for coaching Agile processes in the program. I mean, the coach was responsible for this. And the program manager was responsible for delivery of value in the program, but managing more as a servant leader, as we discussed before. On the teams, we had Scrum Masters working with each team on the Agile process, and we had a separate release organization working with new product introduction, working closely with marketing, and being part of the marketing chain. And on the product side, a very important aspect, as we found, of any Agile transformation is the business side, for them to play their role of giving a product vision for the program, of working out a roadmap for us, and maintaining a backlog of steady, constant flow of work to our teams. So what we learned at this stage was very interesting. The stable teams definitely worked for us. One common backlog helped us focus on one source of work, helped our stakeholders negotiate about what's coming into the program, and also it helped to decouple the release organization from internal delivery. However, the story didn't finish yet. We still faced a lot of scheduling problems and coordination between teams. So your next step in this case is about reducing that pain. One way you can do it is developing on cadence. So what we did is had a strict rule synchronizing our sprints, all sprints starting on the same day of the week, and all sprints delivering at the same time. We also set up a time box for the program. So every 4 sprints, the program was delivering internally, And there was a system test, system integration team that was doing final tests, one more sprint on the program. And this strong focus on governance and coordination enabled us to deliver system level, program level code that was delivered internally. So every 5 weeks, basically. During that time, the system test was working on the integration. I give a small secret. We had a hardening sprint. We had an innovation and hardening sprint that we used to improve the product and also plan the next program time box. So this was really about building that predictability. If you remember the triangle, when we talked about we can only tame the flow of work into the organization, that create that pool between strategy, portfolio, and delivery if we are predictably, reliably producing value. So that was a key step in that. Another step was how we dealt with complexity. So what we started doing is visualizing the work here is doing program planning together with the teams. So imagine 80 to 100 people planning together, planning their work for the next upcoming 4 sprints. Visualizing and discussing dependencies, having product management there, sharing the purpose, the vision that we talked about that really motivates the team, and also assigning business value to the work. So everything that went into this planning process was feature level. What came out was a plan, a committed plan on user story level set by the teams. And obviously, these program managers and agile coaches were there facilitating the process, helping teams coordinate and have those ceremonies. Okay. One more challenge we faced was prioritizing work, deciding between importance of features, balancing importance and urgency, and all that. And it took the industry, I think, a while to find good methods how to prioritize or even sequence work. If you are familiar with Don Reinerstein's book, there are a few quite complex and hard to read principles defined there, which originate in Lean. So a currently known best way is sequencing work rather than prioritizing. So rather than looking at just what's important and what's most valuable to the business, what really happens in backlogs is sequencing. What goes first? And the notion or the observation here is that each work has a time element to it, and it's really important to talk about cost of delay to the business. Cost of delay on each feature. So cost of delay is what's the impact of not doing this thing, this task now? What's the impact of releasing it later? And so we assessed each feature for cost of delay, and we used these principles or elements to it. And we also looked at, okay, but our work has not the same size. So it makes sense to get over smaller chunks of works first. So what we learned through using this algorithm is small batch sizes and how useful, how powerful they are to get exponential increase in the throughput of the organization. So we tried to break down and make our features smaller and smaller as we implemented this process. Yeah, and what else? Surprising, after all these algorithms and methods and structures, just came back to the team. So our team grew with this setup. It became a program. It became a large team, and we had to change our way of managing this program. It became a community, and that had to share knowledge, that had to have fun. So we started focusing on that. We started involving the team more and more in management decisions, and also sharing success together, celebrating success with them and the business. Yeah, there is still an elephant in the room. A portfolio level. And yeah, it's still about governance. So it's a lot of fun. Things are starting to work. But what we found, we were still responsible about meeting strategy, delivery. Reporting on how we spend the budget, the funding. Also, we were responsible keeping up the Agile enthusiasm, evolving our Agile methods. We had to put this competence center, this drive somewhere. And we found that the best place to put it was in our portfolio office. So that was a very tough point where we realized that we are nowhere yet. There's still a lot of work to do. We started looking into best practices. What is our vision? Where should we evolve? We learned that we need to decentralize planning and control. We learned about, just recently we learned about beyond budgeting, how to move from large upfront annual budgeting to more incremental funding. We started funding our value streams, but it was a long evolution when we started really implementing incremental, light business case-based budgeting in the portfolio. Another aspect was planning with the team together, as we have seen on the program level, and not losing focus of code quality, continuous delivery. I avoided visual management here. I have a lean background and a tremendous interest in lean. I believe if you just pick one thing, then start with visual management, start with promoting transparent culture in your portfolio office, open up this information to your organization. And why? So I show an example here. This is from a tool called Linkit, but there are other tools available. They just have a nice template now for this enterprise agile, where I'm demonstrating similar setup that we had. We basically visualized how we break up larger chunks of work, long-term epics we call them, long-term chunks of work that will feed the program itself. There were also some cross-cutting chunks of work that went into several programs. Like we were changing infrastructure below the product. We moved to a different base server that impacted all our programs across the portfolio. So what we did is visualize this breakdown from larger chunks to smaller chunks and batches. And this was basically, this created the pool from portfolio level planning to program level planning and team level execution. There are layers behind this. As we can see what the team has committed in the current program time box of 4 sprints, what are the next likely features to go into the next time box of the program. So basically, a big advantage of using Kanban for this and visual management is that we get feedback on lead times automatically from the tool. So we definitely can see what are the featured lead times in the program, how reliable, predictable they are. We learn those statistics, and that help our organization upfront doing the product planning, strategic planning, feed that continuous flow predictably. Okay, and about our metrics. So metrics drive behavior. We are all aware how powerful metrics can be and how they can go wrong. So we need to be careful what we choose as metrics on the program office, portfolio office level, because they will guide behavior across the organization. There is no question about code quality. That's the ultimate metric, working code. What we had to think about was program level code, so integrated code. These internal releases had to be good enough quality for the release team to take over. Then the next thing is about this organizational capacity, feature lead times, program velocity. Velocity is a dubious topic. We can talk about that, whether shared team uses that here. For the program level, we still had that. We had a standardized velocity, which was obviously always increasing. And then we also looked at our predictability on the program level, how much we could deliver value that we committed to. So basically, there is no magic pill. There are many frameworks that can guide us now. A lot of organizations went through this story, are still going through this evolution. And what we can do is to create our own method, close our eyes, and not study other frameworks, but then just choose our way and evolve in a Kaizen way. What is important there, if you choose this route, is still have a purpose and a vision. You need to know where you are heading to, what's your ideal state, so that you can take the next steps. Need to be really clear about that. I brought some frameworks here, Scared Agile frameworks. So interestingly, you will see similarities with our story to this framework. The Scared Agile framework originated from Nokia, and I was working in the competitor organization at that time. And this is the time where the framework was built in the industry. The first versions of it, we are now at version 3. I later trained as a Scared Agile framework consultant, but I still believe there are other frameworks as well. Why I like SAFe is just the focus on the value stream. It will be difficult to see in the middle, this agile release train on the program level is what defines a value stream, and that drives a SAFe framework. That's the essence of it. If we can stabilize that, then we can really get the benefits of this framework. We need to find those value streams. And then I brought another framework that we work with, and this is originally from IBM. This is now another industry standard. We definitely need a governance framework as well in the project professional organization because of the challenges I described, challenges of governance. We will need to have still checkpoints and milestones to see that business value is delivered and the quality in the teams is always releasable. And this framework is just a great framework. It helps you assess your different aspects of scaling, agility, assess your enterprise, how much you need to scale, and which way to go. And it also gives you governance checkpoints, basically 3 phases on each agile process. Inception, which is more like planning stage for projects. Construction, which is actually delivering the value. And transition, which is more about the release practices. And what I did is just merge these 2 frameworks as a possible way to move towards continuous value delivery, to have a governance process strengthening the SAFe framework. And knowing the SAFe team personally in Boulder, I know that there is that framework specialist that has recently joined the team. The SAFe is evolving towards this direction to strengthen the governance in the framework. Yeah, so I think we are through the tough part of the presentation. And I just have another myth for you. So you are still awake, that's great. And we are all agile now. So yeah, that's why you are here. We are celebrating and we can relax, I think. We are almost there. So what I found and other physicists find in nature is that unfortunately all organisms, natural structures as well as organizations have a trend to decline and move towards chaos. And that's the law of entropy or second law of thermodynamics. A lot of engineers here. Well, that's a problem. If we don't take care of our systems, even if we have continuous improvement programs, and don't take care of our people, our teams, we will decline. So we need to be careful. And our agility will decline as well. Our role as project professionals is to learn and evolve and be lean, agile managers. Maintain this mindset of building empowered teams, empowered organizations. I just copied 2 of my favorite books. Taichi Ono has a special birthday edition, his workplace practices, former chairman of Toyota, a huge lean thinker. And Management 3.0 Workout, which is a recent book. It's a more lightweight, light-hearted book about how we can be lean, agile managers, what are daily practices we can do to work with agile teams. And it's all about Kaizen culture. So Kaizen is about continuous improvement. It's about retrospectives, regular questioning of the as-is, where we are now, regularly assessing what's our purpose, where can we evolve beyond, And what are the next steps? What are the next impediments? So here you see a team doing just that. It's not just a retrospective, it's more than that. They do an agile assessment regularly every 3 months. They evaluate themselves towards that purpose. And there is another good book just recently released. I do a workshop with the author. It's an amazing person, Agile Kaizen, by Angel Medinilla. And there are many ways, many frameworks to assess your agility or lean state. I just suggest a framework here. Various aspects. You can assess your delivery capability and practices. You can think about your organizational systems, your tools and techniques. It's not only software tooling, but also things like continuous improvement process or visual management, portfolio management, process and software, and leadership practices or behaviors, which is more on the soft side. Other frameworks, and I will be very interested what Shell uses, is what I have come across. Some teams or organizations use the Agile Manifesto, the 12 principles that you find behind, to assess their behaviors across the enterprise and see where they are implementing that. A few of us work with XP, extreme programming practices. A lot of teams take that as a guidance, as a purpose, focusing on quality of delivery. And in the SAFE framework, the Scaled Agile framework, there is also an assessment that tells you where you are, how far you are from getting ready for that framework, for that, if you take that as a purpose, as a vision. And one way to do this is just build a habit of it and to organize Kaizen workshops across the company. You can call them anything. You can call them retrospectives. If it more suits your culture, you can call them reviews or quality reviews, which is very traditional. What I recommend is to do these both on functional level, so within functional silos, so to say, but then also on value streams, which are cross-functional, end-to-end, delivering value. What's the state of our value stream? What is our value-adding percentage? What is our lead time to market? Think end-to-end from customer to customer. And it's healthy to do these reviews focusing on teams, so teamwork, then focusing on processes, and thirdly, focusing on product. So maximizing value in our product delivery, reducing waste from our products, and assessing that, how much waste we still deliver that never gets used. So then software wastes, defined by Mary, there are 7 wastes, and we just added one more about people and unused skills. So these are all possibilities for use to use on retrospectives. What we did with a few teams is having these constantly around the team during the sprint, also during the program execution, and just adding post-its, adding ideas that this might be a waste that we are doing, guys. We found that this handoff is really annoying us. We had to wait for this requirement. We had to wait to demo this feature. We had to wait for the other team, discuss this dependency. So then an example how this looks is just brainstorming regularly what are the wastes in our practices that we do today, and visualizing them with the team and talking about it, and not stopping there, building an improvement backlog. How can we then, what are the actions that we should take to not have this waste in our process or product, and having a summary of what's next. We developed a game that is free to use for all of you. If you are interested, just talk to me or find it or SlideShare. We have practice delivering this for organizations or program teams of 70 or more. So it works for large teams. And then lastly, in the invite I asked, so do we still have a job? What's the role of project professionals in agile organizations? We can take all those roles that we mentioned, but you shouldn't forget organizations evolve, and it's all about change. This evolution shouldn't stop, and we have all the skills needed as project professionals, managing stakeholders, understanding risks, communication management, which is huge in change, and change management. It's part of traditional toolbox. And if we take an experimental lean approach to it, using plan, do, check, act, then we can make it really simple. Small step change is more powerful than, in the long run, than just one-time change. So that's my challenge to us, all of us. What's our role is to really help drive this change. And my message is, it's our choice. We can bring this agility to all parts of our organizations, from customer service to marketing teams, even executive meetings, executive planning. But also we can build fantastic products outside. So I hope we will meet in the future and also now have fun in the networking, share more, have good questions. You will find the materials already uploaded on SlideShare. There will be a video of this presentation, thanks to PMI. And please get in touch. We are based in London. It's a company called Lean Advantage. And I also have a challenge for you. I was challenged by someone who leads the Safe Frameworks operations in Europe, that there are not even 5 people interested in the framework in London. And if I get 5 business cards, then we will plan an Agile portfolio workshop for those people who are interested in London. For the rest, we work with Lean mainly and Kaizen workshops. I hope we will have opportunity to share more with the community. Thanks for tonight. I'm looking forward for questions. Yeah, Simon.
Right, thanks very much, first of all, Andrea, for the presentation. I think the material is sufficient to cover the 5-10 hours workshop.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, it's very useful. Okay, that's a small audience, but yeah, let's try. Can you hear me? Is it better? No? Still the same? It's not on? Okay, well, presumably you can hear me, so I can speak louder, normally do. So my question is, well, first of all, I'd like to see, some of these practices in the boardrooms, when it's not, sitting around a big table, but standing up, whiteboards, all works good. Yeah. Coming back to some questions which you touched on a little bit, funding, budgets, etc. Never-ending programs are fantastic things if I have never-ending budget, first of all. But I have limited budget, right? So my question for you is, how do you every year justify your existence? How do you justify, I need this 200 people for the next year? And more specifically, how did you measure value?
Okay, thanks for the question. Yeah, so time was limited, but I will be happy to share some more insights and practices on how this looked like hands-on. There were the people side, the management aspects to it, servant leadership, as well as the practicalities, the tooling, and the planning governance. Never-ending programs are about fixing the capability engine, fixing the stable teams, stable organizations that can actually deliver any product. The problem happens when a value stream is not anymore relevant to the market. So either it's an internal platform that is not anymore relevant, providing enough value, or it's a product family that we need to gradually phase out. So it's a life cycle management process. We justify our existence in these programs by the value that these stable programs have. So it's more about, okay, what work should we bring to these machines, to these value factories, to these 100-person organizations. We will need them. We will need to deliver something, but we need to think about, okay, what will be that work? So rather than killing these value streams, these programs, gradually we phase out the product and we bring in new products or new internal services. We bring those work again to these value streams. There are a lot of practices that we didn't have time to talk about. This talk was strong on program management, maybe project level, but there was less detail on portfolio level. The portfolio evaluates business value regularly after each feature, actually. As we deliver features, there is a lot of waste opportunity still within a feature. Features are evaluated based on business value, but also based on risk and cost of delay, and things like how much opportunity they enable to the organization. That's how we sequence them into the teams. And then they are assigned a number which is relative in the entire product backlog, and we evaluate how much of that functionality was then realized when these features get accepted. So it's a relative number across the backlog. I will be happy to share more details, just give opportunity for others. Yeah.
The example you have here, I see as being market-driven, not, and we're an IT support organization.
Mm-hmm.
So how does it work with that, with the value proposition?
Mm-hmm. So this is a common challenge. In most businesses, IT is becoming a critical strategic advantage or even competitive advantage, and businesses need to realize that. So you need to basically create the same model, consider your business as your customer, and also reason that what are your value streams, what are your stable recurring services that you deliver to this business, what are maybe some products or platforms that you deliver to the business. And what IT organizations face as a challenge, and I'm working now with one, is that they need to manage these various stakeholder groups that pull IT in so many directions. They need to be able to identify value streams and then create one common backlog and one way of sequencing work into IT.
So they become the people that influence, instead of getting the pull from the business, they become the influencers. That's what we have. That's our objective as IT professionals in an IT support organization.
Our objective as IT organization is to show that we can reliably, predictably deliver value if we have a common backlog, a common agreed sequenced work that comes to the organization. Then we can deliver on that reliably, and we know we can show transparently our capabilities, throughput, capacity, all that to the business. But it will be ultimately the business who makes those tough decisions what IT should do. And that's an evolution. They need to understand that they need to plan a bit more ahead. They need to understand this capability. IT has limits as well. So that's how it looks. In this model, your business stakeholders become the customer. Thanks.
To pick up on the point of continuous improvement and never-ending programs, it's one thing with budgets, but what about regulatory change? So we deal a lot in the trading world with regulation comes along, you have to implement these changes to be able to report on this date, and there is no budging that date. How would you work your sort of Agile and your SAFe framework into that sort of environment?
Yeah, so that's unexpected disturbance that we cannot necessarily plan with enough lead time ahead. We try to not disturb these time boxes in the program, so we at least would need to have a time box. In this case, we had 5 weeks, 4 weeks of feature and 1 week of innovation. If regulation changes more frequently than that, then that's a program. Then we need to intervene to the program and communicate that change. There are still sprints that we work in, so we can bring this change into the boundaries, but we will probably need a replanning on the program level, because something we need to get out from the program. Otherwise, this definitely fits the model, so it's doable. And there are financial organizations in Europe that I know of who face the same challenge and are adopting SAFe large-scale. Banks are leading this change. Okay, any more ideas, questions, or something to share?
So, talking about people, did you measure did you do any sort of surveys, any analysis of how people in the organization perceived their performance, their organization's performance, before this new structure was introduced and after? Did you measure any sort of happiness of those people working in the programs, or the staff, to know how many people were leaving, how many people were staying, simple sort of things. Did you do any comparison before and after?
Yeah, it was part of the assessment. It's a very relevant question. With all this change, we will always have stakeholders who hate change. So we might lose people if we change too much or too often. That's what we found. There were people who were self-selecting and saying, no, this Agile is not for me. It's too big change. Everything is turned upside down. So some people left. But then others saw this as an amazing learning opportunity and professional development opportunity. Engineers and on the ground level, Scrum teams enjoyed it thoroughly and still keep enjoying it as the barriers are broken down. Barriers meaning program office governance and the management style is changing to a more servant leadership style, more coaching style. They enjoyed it more and more. They were more and more empowered. Stability helped these teams to make lifelong friendships and stay together after work and go to knowledge sharing sessions, pubs, meetup, conferences, all that. There were some stars teams who really performed well and worked really well. In terms of Agile project managers, there was this worry. Some people were really unsafe in the beginning. And then they evolved their roles. So what happened to most project managers? They either became coaches, Scrum coaches, or they became program managers. So moved, focusing more on higher level. Some of them moved into peer roles, so other roles, explored product management or other roles around. And happiness index and happiness in the program. We definitely used happiness index on retrospectives, which is a common practice, but you can also measure this basically in continuous improvement in retrospectives, not only collect problems. That's a common mistake. We also collect what works, and people and practices are part of that. So we collected what works and try to continue that.
Just on that point, I've also seen trust as a measure. So it's not just about customer being happy about what's being delivered, about the team, what's their trust level. So are they a 1 or are they a 5? And that's very powerful, especially when you're doing Agile and trying to schedule things to be delivered in, with the team taking on the estimating and delivering it. You can see whether they feel confident about that or whether they don't. So it's building on what you've said there.
Interestingly, on a higher level, as we evolved, we reached the situation, this is possible even in IT. We reached the situation where our PMO became the execution engine in the organization because there was so much trust that this PMO, these programs, these teams can make it, anything. So work started to come to this PMO and this started to grow because the trust was there, trust in the PMO and the organization to deliver.
When you say PMO, can you explain that? Because I think PMO can be used in many different ways.
Yes, even in PMI, there is an interesting battle between, what's a program, what's a portfolio. So for me, program is a set of projects that work on the same scope. They're just broken, program is broken down into projects because of its size. And a portfolio is a collection, a set of programs. So we can talk about PMO as managing one program and then just managing the projects below that. In my example, our PMO was managing several programs. It was still called a PMO, but in PMI terms, it maybe would be a program office or portfolio office. And in large organizations, this scales. So if we take the traditional view, you have projects grouped into programs, and then PMOs managing those, and then above PMOs, you can have other PMOs, and these are called different ways. So there is a hierarchy of governance, planning and guidance in the organization.
Yeah.
We can debate that.
I've heard it called, it's almost like an advanced Scrum Master. they are there to make sure the developers are developing every day if they can. So that was a company that I visited. They made sure that they tried to employ somebody that had almost never been in PMO. Because they didn't want the sort of old traditional PMO fashion. They wanted, as I said, an advanced Scrum Master that would do whatever that it took to make sure that the iteration teams, or the Scrum teams, were delivering value. I thought that was, for me, that seemed to connect with that.
So in most organizations, there is a business part, that business is responsible for making decisions on what to work on. That was the strategic, the portfolio of business units, so to say. And then they decide about what mix of products, what mix of services will we bring to the market, how to maximize shareholder value. But then the PM organization makes it happen. So they take responsibility, not for those decisions, they agree to them, and then they need to deliver on those capabilities. That's another way. Yeah, a good question.
So you talk about releases and continuous improvements to a product, right? Would this also work in a big project where you're creating a brand new product from scratch?
Yeah.
I mean, how would that work? I mean, if you have several components, I mean, you're creating a brand new product, you're not doing incremental type of enhancements, let's say, to a specific product.
Yeah. So this definitely works when we start up new product families. We can even bring in some lean startup approach to it. It's very difficult to test a new product in a market and judge what will be the size of the program, how many people we need to budget for. So we often recommend starting small in the beginning, when the product is just reaching the market. Then try to keep your organization as small as possible. And what you are doing is breaking down your product vision into a roadmap and working out the next month, so to say, the next few months more in detail and the future less in detail, planning the architecture for the product, and then starting to work on that backlog, that product backlog with a few teams. Then grow from there, learn about your capability, market demand, and try to match that. So
you're talking about several streams. Are all those streams working in an agile fashion? I mean, do they all follow the same methodology? Should you have, for instance, when you start the agile process, how mature should your scope be? I mean, how mature should the product itself be? Conception of that product, let's say.
yeah, so for agility to work, you will definitely need a constant flow of work to the teams and also product vision. And it's also important to not only think about new features, but architecture ahead. So if you can work with your customers and develop that product collaboratively, that's an agile way of working on the product side. And always focus on exploring, reducing risks first, prototyping first. Then you will find out more about what the product is and what the client needs are. So you can actually start working on a early stage product that way. My recommendation is don't confuse it. It's not yet a tested product market fit. So keep small in the early stage. And then the gentleman behind.
Any thoughts on how to engage with your customer around this? Because we sell usually fixed price software projects, and of course they're used to know they're going to pay £100,000, they're going to get a website or a solution or some sort. The risk at the moment is all on us.
Yeah.
With Agile, we always try to move the risk onto them. How do you best sell that?
So they need to understand that it's not only about risk, but it's also about collaboration. So you basically need to sell Agile with the first few slides. You can do that to show them that if you could demo and break the work down more frequently, you could demo it to them, then you could actually adjust the scope and evolve and manage risk better. So then you would change your contracts a bit. You would still sell a box of capacity to the customer, like resource time or resource price, development resource. But how they fill that up will be more a joint decision. So you will work with them, demo, and incrementally fill it.
I think that's hard because they're expecting to get an end product out of it, and potentially after 4 months they're not going to have anything.
And some of them, they don't want to spend the time with these developers, with these product owners or customer representatives. They feel it's an annoyance. So you really need to still maybe try to demo your product, even if it's a fixed term contract earlier on. Depends on the customer, to bring them to an understanding that this is actually beneficial for them and work that way.
Just to comment on that one, with a fixed price contract, you sell them the approach. You sell them the idea that working together in this way, you maximize the value you together can deliver using this fixed money.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's what you sell. That's what you sell to them.
Yeah.
You don't sell them the product. They're not going to buy it because you don't know how much it's going to cost you. You have massive risk. You sell the approach. How?
Well, the other thing is that Agile is an advantage, because I was in a similar situation ages ago, where we anticipated, like we got a vague spec, but instead of engaging more with the client, we anticipated, well, this is what they wanted. And the feedback we got, we asked for a blue car, and you gave us a red motorcycle. So by not having that engagement continuously, you could be way off the mark with what you're delivering. So it is an advantage, from my experience, to engage with the client as much as possible to make sure you are going to be delivering the blue car.
And I think I know a few customers in your industry. There are companies who develop web software only in Agile way, and that's their selling point, that's their competitive advantage. And then they say this to their customers. They also self-select their customers this way, because these customers see the benefit of working with the developer organization this way. So that can be a way to increase your prices, profitability as well. Okay. Thank you so much, and looking forward to share more.
Should we give Andrea a final? Hi everyone, so my name's Rob. I'm from the PMI Agile Forum for the UK. Chair officially, but we're a sort of volunteer group that arrange these events, so great to see so many people out and attending this one. We've actually got another event happening at the same time tonight, so it's good that we've got so many people. I have got a few slides that Johan's dropped on me, so I'm going to try and explain what they are without knowing anything about them. This is a careers fair. Yeah. It is on the 3rd of November. As you can see, it's free for PMI members. If you're an employee and you want to stall, you can pay a fee to host, to demonstrate and show your company at that event. An early heads up for the PMI Global Congress next year. That date is the 13th of May 2015, on for your diaries. And then something probably a bit more relevant, is the PMI Synergy event in November. So only a few months away, that's at Westminster. I went last year, it's actually quite good, quite useful. I would recommend that one probably ahead of the other two. So again, this one I have no idea what it is. If you've got anyone that you think is a hero, British or otherwise, let me know. I think they need to answer these questions as well. You'll probably find me on LinkedIn. If you know somebody that qualifies as being a British hero, then please get in touch. So that's my bit for Johan completed, I think. Final slide. Some people who've done something very...
Maybe a competition or just call for speakers?
I think just recognition, bragging rights. Something there. I think it will make its way into probably Synergy or a brochure somewhere soon. Something I always forget, so PDU information for anyone that's in the PMI needs to claim their PDU for tonight. There's the details. We'll send out a survey afterwards as well, so you should get that on an email. And do please try and fill in the survey. It's always very handy for us to try and improve these events.